Agribusiness. Brought to you by Bank of New Zealand. Committed to agri for more than 160 years. With over 100 agribusiness partners across the country, BNZ is local and ready to support your business through the seasons.
But right now, Chris Gourley, he is the CEO of Fern Energy. Fuel remains one of the most watched costs on farm and freight. Chris Gourley from Fern Energy joins us with the latest on pricing, supply, and what it is looking at. G'day, Chris. Welcome to the show, mate. Really appreciate your time. Again, you've become a little bit of a regular on the show.
Yeah, it appears so, but there's a bit going on in fuel, so we're all really focusing on it.
All right, mate. So a couple of weeks since we've last spoken, I think it was. Things have, am I right in saying things sort of just have settled a little bit? But what are you, I mean, what's at your end? What are you seeing? What are things, what's the update, I guess?
I think the positive side of things is that the supply side in regards to having diesel in New Zealand, particularly for our farming community, is less of a challenge at the moment. We're getting supply and we're able to actually service our customers through this busy period. So that's the best news. And probably the other side of the coin, which I've been talking about for a wee while, as you know, Andy, is this whole price challenge, which is really starting to burn, across the business, across the farming community, to be honest, for the last period of time. So as I said, it's really shifting to a focus on how do we support farmers with this critical input rather than supply. How do we actually support them around the price side? Because it is becoming quite a significant challenge. Okay, so I'm seeing some quite interesting differences in price. I've seen at the pump. So that's you're almost like your cash price. I've seen $2.99. Anything under $3 at the moment is a win. But in other places, I've seen $3.30, $3.40 still. What's going on there? Why is there such a big difference there in those price differences? I think we've never seen such significant lifts in fuel price before, really, at this level, and it's just taking time for things to settle down. There's all these new jargon things like QPs or quality premiums. There's different suppliers have different timelines for when things come in, so it's just because of the significant swing in price that we're seeing week on week. It's driving some of those differences as those pricing come in, because each importer has a different pricing mechanism. Most of them change on a weekly basis, but they all change at different times. So during the week, you often see prices different across, particularly retail pump outlets. Yeah, because of that. Yeah. Okay.
Is there a good day to buy and a bad day to buy?
It's a really difficult one because it's hard to actually, as I said, I actually left my crystal ball at home again. It's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. Like the last couple of weeks, touch wood, definitely touching wood, we have seen the price reduce a little bit in regards to diesel. In fact, quite significantly over the last couple of weeks. Whether that'll hold or not, I'm not sure. So no, there's not a best time. I think it's more around when you need it, get your hands on it. But and sometimes you'll win and sometimes maybe not. But over a period of time, it should normalise. I keep telling people that, but we should see it normalise.
Obviously, farmers are not buying on the pump price. They normally got a bulk rate, right, which is completely different to what you see on the pump price. But the pump price is kind of a gauge. You generally know you're 20 or 30 cents less than that, depending on how well you've screwed your fuel pump company's arm, right? But are we starting to see those prices sort of stay, or is it still all over the place?
The trend is down, as I said, over the last couple of weeks. So we're seeing it come down, but at different levels depending on where things are at. I think we're always going to, I think in the short term, we're still going to have significant price pressure. I don't know whether it's worth touching on how that diesel price is actually made up.
Yeah, can you do that? Because you talked, you and I actually bumped into each other in a bar on Friday night and we had this precursor conversation. Right. Oh, sorry about that. Did I say that out loud? But look, talking about that, you talked about the refining costs, which is something I don't think that we really take into consideration. We kind of focused on the Brent crude barrel of oil cost, but you said refining costs, a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just, it's basic economics at an extreme level. So diesel is harder to refine for starters. So there's less refineries around the world that actually can produce quality diesel that we demand, and it costs a lot more. For example, in most cases, for petrol and diesel, they can do 2 times as much petrol as they can diesel in those refineries. So immediately there's that. We've seen before the Iran conflict, we've also seen a lot of countries have sanctions against Russia, which have put further pressure on those limited limited refineries that can produce quality diesel. So immediately that becomes supply and demand. If you look at the actual build-up of price, Brent crude definitely has an impact, and it is a good, I guess, benchmark for how the price is going up or down. But actually the refining costs, significantly more of that price. I mean, the refining costs have gone up 3 or 4 times. And you can see it when you look at the wee graph, it's gone up heaps. And that's, again, I'm not going to say that there's a margin grab in there, but the supply and demand thing. So there's the demand for diesel doesn't go down the same as petrol, by the way, either. You don't see too many big boats floating around the world without diesel. You don't see that change. So demand holds. Supply tightens. We're getting less quality crude coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, and all of a sudden there's a supply and demand issue in regards to that side of things. So margins lift for whatever reason, economics, isn't it?
You very carefully said you weren't going to say there's a margin grab in there.
I'm not saying there
I can see you laughing and smiling. I know what that means, right?
I'm just a little fuel distributor in New Zealand.
Okay, well, no one's going to hold you to it.
It has lifted a lot. When you look at the graph, and this is public available information, people can Google it, get onto that ChatGPT and have a look at it. You can see the actual cost to refine is significantly higher lift than the cost of Brent crude, if that makes sense. So it's a significant lift in that space. And we're all sort of wearing that at the pump, unfortunately. Yeah. So
those refineries, though, they're spread around the world, right? If we're talking about supply, and the other thing you just said there, which was interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if you misspoke, but you said less quality Brent crude available, because the Gulf Brent crude is the best there is, right? Because the Americans are quite happy. Trump's going, brilliant, just come and buy oil off us, right? Yeah. But is it not as good a quality from other places around the world? And obviously then probably more refining costs because of that. Is that correct?
That's right. You don't need me to repeat because you've answered it precisely. In fact, all crude's not the same. So, that is exactly right. And therefore, again, those certain refineries that can handle the production of that quality diesel, it's a smaller group, if that makes sense. So it just impacts that thing. I don't want to emphasise that there's no supply issues, though, because as the price has gone up globally right now, and it's really unfortunate, there's certain countries in the world that can't afford it, Andy. They can't buy it because they can't afford it. We're a Western country that can afford diesel, even though it hurts when we pump it into our cars, isn't it? But we can't afford it, so we're not going to have that supply issue. But man, it's impacting and burning on price, right?
Yeah, it is. My diesel ute's driven about 10 Ks in the last 2 months. It's just sitting there. I mean, who knew that I was going to rely on the old Ford Escape hybrids so much? But that's the nature of the beast at the moment. I don't need to use it, so I'm not. And actually on that, are you seeing a drop in demand because of the costs?
Not really. We're 90% diesel, and we focus predominantly on the productive sector. They don't have any choice. You can't just park up your combine harvester, Andy, and think, I'll get out there and do it with the horse. It doesn't work that way. So we've still got work that has to be done. So demand for diesel hasn't really drifted off when you look at the productive sector. People like yourself, Andy, absolutely are looking at ways of saving the ute and using diesel and that type of thing. But you tell me what solution a farmer's got when they need to get out and sort things out on the farm.
Yeah, no, they haven't. They don't have a solution, and we'll talk to a couple of guys on the farmer panel later on about this. But certainly, it is a real problem. And I know guys I've spoken to has just got to fill up the combine, and there's $3,500 gone, boom, just like that.
Yep, and it's a lot more expensive than it was a month or two ago, right? So it's it is challenging, and it's a critical input, and it's not just fuel. It's like I'm all about the diesel way, but fertilizer's going up, so the poor old farmer's getting hit on a number of those critical inputs at the moment. And I think I sort of banter on about it, but I just think the government does need to start thinking about how they support the productive sector as we come through winter into spring. There's so many costs coming at those farmers, and if they can't support, what happens? Prices go up, right? We're going to see it at the supermarket. We're going to see it all around the place. So it's something that needs to be looked at and managed. And if you do Google up that graph I was talking about with the refinery costs, there's another colour in there called GST. Everybody tells me, no, we're not collecting more GST. Well, actually, the graph quite clearly shows you that GST is a percentage of the fuel cost, and it is going up. So maybe there's some opportunities to have some robust discussions as a New Zealand or New Zealand Inc. and figure out ways we could could actually support this as we come through, because it benefits all of us when the primary sector's firing.
Yeah, I tried that one and I got schooled in fifth form economics. I might have to go back and learn a little bit more about it. Just what are I know you're watching this every day. What about the futures? What are the American world money market global traders futures saying for the Brent crude price? Or is it just not even worth considering that at the moment?
Well, there's still pressure. There's still pressure on price. I mean, it's usually by what Trump says. So, the barrels jumped up to, I think, about $106 or $107. I got to look at it every hour because it changes from 90. So that's pretty significant. And that's based on the standoff in the Strait at the moment. So there's still a lot of pressure on crude oil at the moment globally.
So are you just surprised? So Fern Energy, can you choose when to buy, or you just buy whatever's available now? And I have my glass of water and I take a drink, as you told me.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to do that. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do it based on what Trump says. Actually, we'd make lots of money, wouldn't we? No, we don't have any choice, unfortunately. We pick up fuel from the gantry on a daily basis and we empty it into customers' tanks the same day. So we don't have the ability to really manage that at all. We don't store fuel. We're a simple distributor. Pick it up from port, deliver it that day. We take the wins and the losses just like everybody else.
All right. Chris Gourley, CEO of Fern Energy, mate. Really appreciate your time. We'll give you a call in a couple of weeks and we'll have a further update.
Really, no problem. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. And let's hopefully we see this trend of diesel coming off and price continue for a bit longer. It'd be pretty helpful.
Well, we're not seeing a 4 in front of it, which we were. We're seeing a low 3. So, I mean, that was only 2 weeks ago. I saw 440 at one point.
Yeah, we've had a couple of big drops. I think a 60-cent one and a 30-cent one. So it's quite significant.
Anything this week?
This week's about 30 cents off, I would say, on average, somewhere between 20 and 30, depending on
the timing. From now going down 30, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, some of that will be priced in already. So that's that difference that you see at some of the pumps. So some of that you'll be seeing now that some pumps are lower. As you said, I think you saw a $2.99 somewhere. Yeah, so that'll mean it's already in. And then the other ones that are a bit higher, you might have said $3.20, probably haven't got it in yet. Does that make sense? Yeah,
I think it was an MPD I saw at $2.99. So obviously they must have got it in early or something. So anyway, but on that, we can be assured that fuel companies are looking after us. Honestly,
when you look at the graphs, you can see how thin our margins are. We're all about lots of volume, small margins. We don't have flex and ability to rip anybody off. And why would we want to? We're in it for the long term. We want to support customers for the long term, and I don't think that's the case at all. I don't know about the refineries, Andy. That's up for people that are a lot smarter than me.
You've already been there. I'm not going to get you in trouble, mate. I know you've got to keep buying because I've got to keep my car filled.
That's it.
All right, Chris Gourley, CEO of Fern Energy. Thanks for your time, mate. Really, really appreciate it. Have a good one, and we'll talk again.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your show. Thanks very much.
Out on the farm, the right support goes a long way. Speak to your local BNZ agribusiness partner for insight and expertise you need to farm through the seasons.